And we're back.
Welcome to episode 239 of No Direction, the No Direction Network's Pathfinder news reviews and interviews podcast. I'm Ryan Costello.
And I'm Vanessa Hoskins.
And today we are talking about kind of a smorgasbord of some of the things that we are excited about from the last couple of months of releases from Paizo, as well as a fun preview of what to expect from Bestiary 3. And joining us to talk about that is the Pathfinder lead designer, Logan Bonner. Welcome back, Logan.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be back. Share some design insights and some insider scoops.
How have you been doing? How has been the Pathfinder lead designer been treating you?
Pretty good. It's been there's a larger team now than there was when I started doing it. So I think we're not announcing the new members for a little bit, but it's been a whirlwind of a year for lots of reasons, internal and external. So.
Yep. Yes, it has. So, yeah. Logan, first I want to get your reaction when we said we wanted to dedicate a whole segment to the advanced GM screen. Was that a surprise?
Yeah, a little bit. I think Aaron got a hold of me and already primed me. He was like, I've suggested we go a little bit beyond that. So, or that was his suggestion to me that I think I passed on to you. I was like, that makes sense because it's a cool product, but it is, it's a straightforward tool. So there's not a lot of like, when we were designing this table, we decided.
So the reason that we thought we could get a whole segment on it, and I am glad that you and Aaron talked us out of that, was, first of all, there is no 1E equivalent of the advanced GM screen. So when it was announced, that was like, oh, that's interesting. This is one of the first fully 2E products we've heard about. And then, so we didn't really know what to expect from an advanced GM screen. And then it came out and it's gotten really good reaction. And so I thought maybe there was really something here that you've really blown expectations out of the water about what a GM screen can be. So why don't we start there? What makes a good GM screen?
So the thing with the first GM screen is that it is kind of a thing you use that needs to work when you're starting to play the game. If you pick up your first core rulebook and bestiary and GM screen, you want all the stuff you need to run right away. And for the advanced screen, it's a little more of there's some of the stuff on the original GM screen that you just remember now. You don't need the list of all the skill actions because you've internalized that. You don't need the action symbols. So the advanced one is kind of more it's still got all the stuff that's really hard to remember for kind of anybody. But it's got a lot more things that are like, you're the GM who's going to need to improvise and you want to have the numbers for monsters all on hand. It's got a lot of the game mastery guide stuff in it so that you can kind of, you can use some of that stuff that is a little more improvisational.
Lava being in chat is already asking questions and ask if the advanced GM screen is more for homebrew GMs who need to constantly improve content, or is it better for folks running core Paizo content?
It's got a lot of stuff that's useful for a home GM who's improvising and who's inventing their own stuff. But really, like if you've been playing for a while and you've been running Pathfinder Society scenarios or APs or whatever it is, there's a lot of space on the original GM screen that you probably don't need to have what's on there. So you kind of hit a point eventually where kind of either screen is going to work for you. Okay. So one is definitely better for the brand new GM, and one is definitely better for the home GM who's making their own stuff. But if you're kind of in that experienced GM category and don't need to make up stuff, just pick whichever one you like the art on better, and you'll do just fine.
Now, V, you were saying that although you are an experienced GM, you don't actually have a whole lot of experience with GM screens.
That is true. I typically don't have this sort of, like GM wall in front of me. I sort of just set all my notes right on the table and, hey, if the players want to cheat, well, naughty them. Coal in their stocking. So as someone who isn't used to using a GM screen, what do you see as the big draw to using one, specifically this one, as a veteran GM that I am?
Yeah. The way I tend to use them, because I don't usually like having a screen in front of me either, is I just put it flat on the table like a placemat. And it's really there so like I don't have to flip around my book. I don't have to put a tab on the simple or the DCs by level table because it's just on the screen. So that's usually what I do. I mean, you've got the really nice art on it, so it kind of is like, well, you can't see this cool win. I was just like, oh right, we have those. So I went and picked them up. So if folks want to see the art, I'm not sure if the images online do it justice, but
We got Tree Racer. That's the Grim Reaper next to him, right?
that is a Skull Taker.
Oh, what's the Skull Taker from?
A high level undead.
Okay.
It's got all 12 of the core rulebook iconics on it. Kind of half of them on this side and half of them over here. There's a little limb in the tree.
Mm-hmm.
It's hanging out there. So, and then I also picked up the Paizo.com exclusive one, which we were like, what are we going to do for the art on this one? We already did the core iconics one for the first GM screen. So I was like, well, we've got the cool book covers. So we use those.
Oh,
and what was the thinking making that one the PaizoCon exclusive one, making portrait rather than landscape?
That's kind of what we did with the first one. We were kind of like, well, which one do we think is going to be more popular and get more use? We'll kind of put that one in stores. And then people who really like the vertical screens, because we know there's a big contingent of those folks, can pick up the other one on Paizo.com. So, and I think that must have worked for the initial one because that's what the specs they went for with the advanced one.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know that folks in chat are already excited about what is on the screen, including things like standard DCs obviously are super useful, but things, sorry, I lost my place. Oh yeah, the monster and hazard creation, some of that information they were looking for. I like the hazard page particularly. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was one of the things we'd seen with a lot of folks saying that, hey, with the new monster creation rules, I can just have this page with the Game Mastery Guide open and I can improvise a lot of my monsters on the fly. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, well, people are doing that. Let's put it in an even easier to use form and just put it on a screen. Then they don't have to have the book open even. Well, it's also got the victory point system from mm-hmm. Game Mastery Guide. It's got the basics of that and the reputation system. So some of those kind of subsystems that have a lot of uses in your game are in there in an abbreviated form.
And even just things like the XP rewards and encounter budget make it really easy for a GM on the fly to be able to say, ooh, I need another encounter here. What can I pull in really quickly and make something that's level appropriate for my PCs?
Yeah. And that's one of those things that that was on the original screen. And it's like, well, that's really useful for everybody. So we put that on the new screen as well. And that's the kind of thing, like if you're running an AP, that's really handy to have on hand if you're calculating experience for it.
Now, I don't know why I was surprised that there are several charts from the Game Mastery Guide on the GM screen. I guess I'm just not used to that, but I think that's kind of a testament to how good the second edition Game Mastery Guide is.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that, for that book in particular, we kind of looked at all of first edition and we're like, well, what's the stuff that we ended up needing in first edition that we didn't start out with? And how can we kind of seed that stuff into the game early on? And that's kind of where the Game Mastery Guide got a lot of the stuff with victory points and influence. A lot of those things, it's like, this will pay dividends across adventures and modules for years and years. So let's get this in here as early as we can manage it.
So chat has quite a few good ideas about what to do with the PDF, this is one of those products that I was like, why would you get the PDF? You obviously want the physical screen. But Zathos of Varicia said that he printed out the art, laminated it, which that just makes sense. That is a gorgeous piece of art. Yeah. And Dustin Knight, Kitsune Warlock, says he printed out the different panels and put them under his glass desk to help him when he's writing.
Nice. Yeah, it's also... some people have like the plastic insert GM screens. Mm-hmm. So if you want to like use that for a bunch of different games and, say you want the tables that are on this screen, but you also want, player handouts on the outside, right? You can, use that printout to kind of marry the two styles. Also just like right now, I'm playing all my RPGs at home. So having a PDF version of everything is pretty useful.
Yeah, just sort of a quick and easy reference of all the charts in one PDF, so you can just like, oh, let me switch tabs. Okay, that's the number I needed. Done.
Yeah.
So we have a question from Lava Being. He actually asked this earlier in our chat and then repeated it in the Twitch chat live right now. Given the more advanced audience for this screen, were there any changes to the structure or format of the screen, considering the vertical exclusive version for PaizoCon? Paizo.com. I meant to actually have a follow-up question on this because I didn't quite understand the question. Do you understand what Lava Being is asking, Logan?
I think so.
Okay.
So basically when you lay out one of these screens, because I did this for the first screen, and then I did part of the new screen and Liz Liddell did the rest of the work on it. I don't remember where I started and she picked up because there was kind of a whirlwind time when we were working on those. But you basically have to kind of lay out one screen and then tell Art, okay, move everything around like this, and we'll see if that works. And if not, we'll figure out how to adjust it. So when I was doing the initial screen, what I basically did was use the Paizo printer to print out a bunch of tables, cut them out by hand, and slap them on in different configurations on a board, which honestly, that is faster than doing it with any digital version, just because you really, I bought a different games landscape style GM screen because we knew it was going to be about the same size and number of panels, and just kind of use that to kind of lay stuff out and shift things around until I got something that both fit and kind of had some type of logical progression, like, oh, the encounter building stuff is all on panel 4 and the action stuff is all on panel 2. So yeah, you kind of have to take a bunch of stuff and then figure out, okay, what all is going to fit? What are a couple things that are like the least useful that I will have to remove, and kind of do a little bit of back and forth until you get something that'll work with the actual physical space you have.
Mm-hmm.
So now the first panel on both of the GM screens is dedicated to conditions. And in first edition, I was always like, well, now that I've got condition cards, this condition space is wasted. And I realize using this in second edition, where my mistake was there is that shuffling through the cards is wasted time. Whereas now I could hand the deck to a player, say, find this condition. While you're looking for it, I have all the conditions handedly summarized here that I could read to you so everyone knows what page we're on.
And there's only two of each card, so if you hand one to your players, and maybe another player also has the condition, now you don't have the card. So
yeah, or somebody has that condition card, but it's halfway across the table. It's like, what does that say? So having it right in front of you can be more convenient.
Right.
The death and dying rules. That's not on the regular or the non. I'm just going to call it the regular.
That is on both of them.
It is on both?
So. Yeah, the stuff that's on both of them, I think, is conditions, death and dying, unconscious, treat wounds, that kind of like that whole column, basically. Some of the like environmental stuff, falling damage. The main things that are different are like the skill actions got swapped out, the action symbols got swapped out. There are a few other things. I have all of the GM screens handy just for comparison's sake. But yeah, it's mostly, I think the things like exploration activities and skill actions, you are more likely to internalize over time than you are, the 14th level monsters AC kind of thing.
Unless you're sending a lot of 14th level monsters after the party.
Yes.
Oh, please don't do that. Unless they're 20th level or something.
So I think we've covered the GM screen pretty well. If there are people in the audience that still have some questions, throw them out there and we will we'll jump back to them. But any final thoughts on the reception and the execution of the GM screen, or the advanced GM screen?
So the interesting thing about how it kind of came about was because I wasn't there for like when we decided we were going to do an advanced GM screen. That kind of happened, and then I saw it on the schedule. I was like, "What is that?" What is an advanced GM screen? It was just like a title. It's like, well, it sounds like it's a GM screen. I don't know what advanced means. But so I asked Eric Mona the other day, and he's like, oh, we really liked Wayne Reynolds' art and wanted a really big Wayne Reynolds piece of art. That looks great on a GM screen.
That is such an Eric answer too. I wanted a big piece of Wayne Reynolds art, so I'm like, what can I put this art on so I can order the art?
Yeah. So it was kind of that, and it was that, and wanting to put some of the kind of newer rules post core rulebook onto a screen. I think the original idea was more APG, but eventually it's kind of like the GMG stuff is generally more useful for the GM screen.
Well, and those newer or at least updated Death and Dying rules, I know there was a little confusion at initial release, and so having the updated rules right there in front of you helps sort of establish, no, this is the way it's supposed to work, and hopefully the GM doesn't have to use it that often. I say as someone who plays more than GMs these days.
Yeah, that part is one of those ones that's like, we know we want the system to do all these different things. That is hard to do simply. So it's not simple. So we're making sure it's on the GM screen.
And is there any consideration doing further, more advanced GM screens?
It's not super likely. We've talked about it some. It's kind of a thing you can do once in a while, but not really. Usually there's nothing to like spur one on. Though, you misreading Paizo.com as PaizoCon makes me think, it's like, what if we did a PaizoCon exclusive GM screen that you can just get at PaizoCon, right? I think the cool thing with a lot of these is, doing it for special events, doing a cool new piece of art. I think that's kind of one of the cool things about GM screens.
Yeah, there's iconics that aren't on the GM screen now. There's more coming.
Yeah, well, once we get enough of them to kind of fill up a GM screen, I think using the APG ones would have been a little tricky because it's like one of them per panel. They'd look very lonely.
All right, so the other product that's out right now that you suggested you wanted to talk about was the beginner's box. So just starting there, what was it about the beginner's box that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, just that is really nice that it's out.
Yep.
It was a cool project to work on. Did you do an episode on the beginner box with a?
We did an unboxing of the beginner box. So we were reviewing it because we assumed that it was going to be comparable to the past two beginner boxes that you've put out. But now that we've got you on here, instead of doing a review, it's a good opportunity to really break down what the content is, what some of the decisions were. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the lessons from the first two beginner boxes that Paizo released that you applied here?
I think there was the main lesson from the first Pathfinder beginner box that I think kind of, it was like a grain of sand in Jason's fingernail or something, that the rules had to be different, right? You couldn't take your character and go play in a Pathfinder game. So the big thing was like, if I build a character with a beginner box, you can go play it at a Pathfinder 2e table without having to convert anything. Mm-hmm. And that's how it works. It does work that way. There's some like terminology stuff that you'll have to learn, right? Like the beginner box doesn't have ability scores because you don't need to know how they work for your character to work, because you aren't getting to the point where you're increasing your ability scores in the beginner box.
And all the pre-gens are already made, so
yep,
you get what you get.
That's true. And so that was the kind of the main. You've got a little red.
Yeah, I see
from
it.
Your hat.
Amateur. For our listening audience, Ryan just took off his festive holiday hat because he couldn't stand the heat.
No, I couldn't stand the pressure. That is my childhood Santa hat, and it was not made for an adult's head. And now I'm marked by it.
Yeah. Got to get some clamps and attach it to your headset.
There you go.
But I don't want to destroy it. It is the fact that it survived and that the Ryan on the front
it's in
is still
good shape.
legible.
Yeah. So the beginner box, the lesson from Pathfinder 1E was that was kind of the main one.
Yes.
And then the Starfinder beginner box kind of introduced like the reminder cards, reference cards. And that was something that we wanted to make sure we did because they are super useful and were really popular. Mm-hmm. So we picked that up. I think that was kind of inspired by board games, reminder card kind of thing. and there are just a few like production things, right? Like how many bases do we need? How many pawn sheets, that kind of stuff that you kind of have gotten better at over time.
Yeah, I really like the player reference cards. And actually, I don't know if this was deliberate, but a lot of what's on here is the stuff that was taken off of the basic GM screen and put onto the advanced one. And so if you have the beginner box and you are looking for a GM screen, you can go straight to the advanced one because a lot of that material is already covered. And this is one of the things, the player card is something that I can see carrying over when I'm done using the beginner box for the beginner box adventure. This will just become a regular tool at my game table.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sure. There's already several folks I would like to introduce to the game with the beginner box. When we're able to go visit family and long distance friends who aren't. Somehow I have friends who don't play Pathfinder. I'm not sure how that happened. But I plan to use the beginner box to indoctrinate. I mean, to show them this really cool game.
So I do plan on using the beginner box in the near future with my oldest daughter, who's 5 now. And so her reading is not quite there yet. So I'm going to have to add my own nonverbal tools for her specifically to use. But a lot of the other things that are in there, I think, are going to be exciting for her. And the color-coded dice is going to be a major part of that.
Yeah.
She's got some fancy dice sets already, even though she's never played a role-playing game. But having this as a learner set is good. Because I remember even teaching somebody Pathfinder at a game store. And I told him he needed to pick up he needed to make a check. He picked up the D12, and I said, that's a D12. And he interpreted that as, you need the D12 for that check. And so he put it down and picked it right back up. And we just had like an awkward moment just trying to figure out where the confusion even was.
The red one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that was Jason's idea, I think, too. I think he was, you could tell when we were working on that, there were a bunch of ideas that had been sitting in his brain for like 5 years. Right. And he's like, okay, beginner box.
Something else that I really appreciate about the beginner box is the Otari link to other products. So it's not just you like this game, you can now move on to the core rulebook. It's also, if you like this adventure in this setting, you can move on to the Troubles in Otari. What is it called? The anthology, Troubles in Otari anthology, and the Abomination Vaults adventure path, which is even a 3-part adventure path, which makes it more of a beginner's adventure path.
Yeah.
So how
beginner, or just somebody who thinks we can get through 3 volumes, but we're not going to be able to do all 6.
Yeah, folks don't want to necessarily commit to, all right, for the next year and a half. Like, no. Let me just play a little bit and then create a new character because I'm going to come up with more concepts.
Yeah, that's true. Otherwise, you'd have to be like, how can I get my character killed without it looking too suspicious?
Oh no, I've run into that far too many times. Sometimes
I've got this. You guys all run to the next room. No, we're good. There's no time pressure. We'll help you. No, go.
I'll just fight them off by myself. Ignore the
It's my
advanced
heroic
players guide
sacrifice.
over here. Has nothing
All
to
3
do
of
with
these kobolds. I'll stop them.
Has nothing to do with wanting to play an oracle. Really, I can take it. Just go.
Take off your armor, throw down your weapons. Let's do this.
Well, I mean, if you're a paladin of Kyrgyz, a champion of Kyrgyz, then if they don't have armor, you can't have armor, right? That's how to do it fair and square. If you die and become a oracle of battle, well, so be it.
Yeah. So, given that Otari was giving me this connection point to so much of the learning process and the next step in the Pathfinder player experience. What was coordinating that like with the adventure designers and the adventure teams?
That was kind of something I wasn't super involved with. I know that there was a lot of it was kind of like back and forth at the concept stage, and then Liz put together the like 4th level character rules using the beginner box part, because most of it, like once you have the beginner box done, most of it is just like, well, use this for, your players have this, you have this box to work with. Whereas a lot of our adventures, it's like, you have these 16 books that people may or may not have. So those adventures kind of had like a little narrower, narrower set of tools, but also, what those tools are. which can be nice sometimes. So you're not like, what's this feat out of Adventure Path Volume 8 or 118 that we need to use.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing in the beginner box that is exciting, and this was kind of after opening the beginner box, I realized how exciting this was the Sirenscape postcard, which may just feel like an advertisement until I saw that Jason actually reads all the read aloud text as a feature in the Sirenscape sound set for the beginner box.
Wait, really?
It's a feature,
you can
not a
get
bug?
Jason Bowman GMing you by way of Sirenscape.
That is bizarre and fantastic, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. How did Jason Bowman get in my house anyway?
So what you're saying is I need to run the beginner box with Jason as a player and use his read aloud text.
Yes.
Just play it right at him.
Oh, yes.
Jason, make sure your headset's on. Jason, this is important plot information. You got to listen to this.
Jason's like, why am I the only player?
I don't even know if he'd notice that. He'd be like, yes, it's me and me and me and me, and I'm also GMing. And I'd be like, well, okay, Jason.
Oh, I got an extra XP award. How interesting. Thank you, Game Master.
And that's great. Yeah, I think it's going to reach a lot of new folks, and I think it's going to be even more impactful than the original beginner box, which was already super useful. But the fact that this one just sort of slides seamlessly into multiple adventure paths and right into the regular core rules, you don't have to relearn anything or scaffold things on top of your beginner box rules. Or at least not much. I mean, how you build a character and such, but like it's not a different way of playing. There's not different things that apply. It's all the same game, and I think that's going to be fantastic for pulling people into the hobby.
Yeah. The trickiest part is just kind of when it came out, because it's like for the people who are stuck at home with enough people to play with, it's the perfect time.
Right.
For everybody else, it's the worst time. So, it's like if you've got those folks in your life, it's like, oh, I know that family is all together. I can send them a beginner box. And then there's me. It's like, well, I can't really play with anybody right now.
Well, like I was saying, I would like to run this for my daughter, and my plan is just to set up 3 tablets, one with Param's face, one with my friend Will, one with my friend Emily,
cool.
A camera pointed at the map, and just everyone knowing that this would be Scarlett's first role-playing experience. They would be there for her and her support. So the fact that she's really the only one that would be messing around with the board in the physical space, I think she would get a kick out of that.
Yeah, that map is really gorgeous too.
I appreciate having a whole dungeon on the map.
Yeah, it's got a nice contrast too, so I imagine it'll look pretty good on cam.
I haven't tested it yet, but I do have a whole vision of how that setup will be.
Nice.
All right, well, that'll be really fun. You should take like pictures or little bits of video or something for a Geek Together, just so we can all get a peek into what the experience was like.
I've considered just how much content I should make out of my daughter and how much that's child exploitation.
Yeah.
It's a fine line when you're a content creator with kids.
That's probably true. I just think it would be neat.
Well, like I was saying that I would also make more manipulative rather than written just like her bonus. I have a thing, it would be like, here's a bowl, it's got 5 cubes in it because you've got a +5 bonus to whatever your roll is. So roll the die, it's 15, and now start counting cubes. So that is something I can see making an article out of and taking pictures out of that side of the experience. Again,
that's cool.
If you've got a real beginner for the beginner box, here's how you go. But again, I've got to do all that before I can make content out of it. So Logan, are you ready to talk about Bestiary 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What's the theme of Bestiary 3?
It's kind of like the first 2 bestiaries. Well, I guess the second bestiary. The first bestiary is like, how many of the most famous monsters can we cram into here? Then the second bestiary and the third bestiary are kind of like, it's a wide variety of monsters with a couple of like themes that kind of run through it. So like Bestiary 2 has a lot of Fae in it. Bestiary 3 has one of the same themes as the first edition Bestiary 3, and that there are a lot of Eastern monsters, a lot of monsters from Chinese, Japanese, Filipino myth. So there's that kind of nice theme, and a lot of old favorites coming back with that. Speaking of which, one of those, the dragon type for that book is the Imperial Dragons.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Who have a... I worked with the author, Yvonne, who had this kind of idea of like the elemental natures of the dragons, kind of giving them each a, kind of the part of the elemental cycle that they're strong at and the one that they're weak at. So they each have kind of this interplay between two of the elements in the kind of 5 elements cycle. So it's kind of one of the fun kind of universal abilities across these dragons. So like let's say the forest dragon, for example, is countered by metal and is fed by water. So,
oh, cool.
And each of them has something like that. So the sea dragon is countered by earth and fed by metal, right? So each of them, once you've encountered some Imperial Dragons,
fed by metal?
It is complicated.
Okay. you had me up until that one.
Well, there's a 5-point cycle. I don't think I want to get into all the details because then I'll just be reading the book at you,
right.
Which I know some people in chat will probably tell me, please just read us the book so we know what's in it. But basically wood feeds fire, fire feeds earth, etc. around the wheel, and then they counter in the opposite direction. So it's kind of a fun direct mythological tie that is in there.
We've also got a whole bunch of skeletons on the cover because there's troop rules this time around, and I know a lot of people are excited about that.
Already? Yeah. I thought we had to wait for a specific AP for that.
That's another one of those ones that's kind of like, we know APs are going to need this, we know tables are going to need this, so we're going to try to kind of do it a little earlier in the life cycle. So yeah, that's a skeleton infantry, which has stats in the book. There are also some kind of more human ones, like there's a Hell Knight cavalry.
That's cool.
There are some animal ones, and one of my favorites, which is the skull. Well, I guess the skull swarm is a swarm, but I like the art because it's just a bunch of skulls floating around.
Yeah, but I can see you doing things with animals. You have a herd of oryx or something, so you don't have to worry about 15 individual oryx using trample. You just have a giant group of them using trample.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It's kind of the swarm is kind of used for the uncontrolled, wild, not very tactical thing, and the troop you can use for something that's more kind of intelligent and tactically minded.
Oh, I see. So would you still do a swarm of oryx then, even though they're pretty darn big?
You could do, yeah. I don't know. We don't have that one in the book, so we didn't have to answer that question for ourselves yet.
You don't have
I think if you're doing it for your home game, you kind of do whichever one you need. But like,
okay,
the skeleton troops are kind of the smart, just smart enough in their collective, undead hive mind that they can, move around carefully.
Gotcha. Interesting. Gosh, I want to see this so bad. One thing that's sort of, I don't know, suggests something to me is you had mentioned that there are a lot of sort of Eastern mythology themed creatures such as Imperial Dragons, and what that might suggest about upcoming adventures that you probably can't talk about. But I'm just going to throw that out there and let it just sort of hang in the air. That I am excited at the prospect of what that might mean.
We do know the Ruby Phoenix tournament's coming out.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. So I'm sure there'll be some fantastic things in there.
Yeah.
So excited.
Well, and a lot of it, like, I don't know if we consciously went into it saying like, let's do more Eastern themed monsters, or if it's more like, these are the monsters people want to see. Mm-hmm. Well, look who's here.
So there was an interesting quote from Aaron Shanks, who runs Paizo's PR. He was saying that Bestiary 3 with Bestiary 3 releasing early next year, it will complete what the designers considered to be the core rulebooks of Pathfinder. Now, I thought the Advanced Player's Guide completed the core rulebooks of Pathfinder. I am surprised Bestiary 3 also makes the cut. So can you just kind of expand on this quote and its greater meaning?
Well, I think APG is kind of completing the player cores, right? Which is kind of the player needs the core rulebook and the Advanced Player's Guide, and they have a lot of character options. And Bestiary 3 is more completing the like player and GM side, kind of evergreen base set of books, where it's like, yeah, you have a lot of monsters now. So we are kind of moving more toward kind of doing themed monster books and away from kind of like, here's a bunch of monster ones. So the next books we're planning in that pool are going to have more like, okay, you need this type of monster to run this type of campaign. Here's all about it. Kind of more of a narrower, deeper pool where these are kind of shallow and wide.
Okay, I follow that. So, all right, so let's say I am a GM. I've got the Bestiary 1, Bestiary 2. What part of the pool is Bestiary 3 really going to help me fulfill? I screwed up my metaphor, but you get where I'm going?
Yeah, well, the first 3 bestiaries are all kind of like a grab bag, right? It's like, what is a bunch of cool stuff, a bunch of fun stuff? It doesn't necessarily have to be in here with a higher purpose. It could just be, hey, we want to put Clockworks in here because Clockworks are cool, and we might want to use Clockworks. And then the other books would be more along the line of like, what is a category of monster that people could use a whole bunch of to kind of run through their whole campaign and go for a certain kind of vibe. And that's the main difference, right? It's just it's kind of more focused versus more kind of like it's a party.
And would it still be bestiary / number, or would you
unlikely?
Go in a different direction?
We're looking at doing it, kind of presenting them a different way.
Kaiju Stiary.
Hold on, let me write something down. Big money ideas.
Seriously. I mean,
Jeffrey Wynn in chat is specifically asking if the Dretch and Main make it into Bestiary 3 because there's no demon equivalent of the Lemure. Lemure? I don't know how to pronounce it.
There is in Bestiary 3 a demon equivalent of the Lemure.
Ooh.
So that will not need to be a concern any longer.
But is it a Dretch?
I will not say what it is. I will say that it has an ability called Cower. And an ability called Sloth. And let you put the pieces together from there.
So if it's not the Dretch, you got a problem with the Dretch? Why didn't the Dretch make the cut?
I didn't say it's not the Dretch.
You didn't.
I just didn't say it is the Dretch.
Oh, the mind games.
No, honestly, being this cagey is that's more of a devil move than a demon move.
That's
so
true.
I'll go more. I'll turn on my demon side and say like, the Dretch is in the book.
But can we trust that, you demon? What are you doing to us, Logan? This is supposed to be a preview, not a tease.
Gosh, so mean. Evil, one might say, honestly.
Yeah.
So it does sound like there will be demons and devils in this book alongside dragons, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's, I think, not quite as many as we have in like Bestiary 1 and 2, the demons and devils, but there's a bunch of other creatures from the outer planes that make an appearance in here. I have like kind of a small list of stuff I want to talk about, so I don't want to get into too many of them, but there are kind of a lot of old favorites making another appearance in here.
Such as what else is on your list?
So the other things on my list. So we've got this Clockwork Dragon on the cover, so you could probably guess that Clockworks are in the book.
Excited.
There were some Clockworks in AP number 160. They have the wind up ability, so it kind of lets you, we kind of wanted that in there, so you can still like, I'm going to sneak around while they're getting charged, right? They're getting rewound, so this is a good time to sneak through this part of the evil wizard's castle or whatever, and so the rogue can kind of try to disable them and wind them down to make them easier to fight. So we have kind of a lot of these are kind of the classic Clockworks, like the spy, and the mage and the Clockwork Soldier and the Clockwork Dragon are in here. So you'll have like a nice spread of clockworks. There are also, if you're following along with some of the Ancestry Guide news, you might know that the Sprite is a playable ancestry in there. And it brought in a couple new types of sprites. So we can't have those types of sprites and then not also have them in a bestiary. So we have those new sprites in here.
I'm so excited.
And they're cute and also weird. One's kind of bat-like, another's kind of dragon-like. So they're pretty fun.
That is so exciting. I want to play a sprite. I need to play a sprite in a game.
Well, you'll want to pre-order Ancestry Guide.
I know.
No,
You just mentioned
we're
playing
also getting
sprites.
the Android in the Ancestry Guide, and I don't believe we've gotten an Android creature yet, right?
I don't recall whether they're an Ancestry Guide or not, because I didn't work on Ancestry Guide. I was kind of involved in some of the planning stages, just kind of like can we put this one in here? Can we not kind of stuff? But that was like early enough on that I don't remember what all ended up in the final version. So Aaron might know whether androids are in there, but I'm not sure. But yeah, we do have the Android entry in Bestiary 3. I wrote some new monsters for this book, because that's what I tend to do when I'm doing bestiary work. It's like, give me some of the new monsters. I want to do some goofy stuff. I also adapted an old favorite. So I'm gonna give chat the choice. So ask them whether they want to know what the Bauble Beast is, the Brainchild, or if they want to know an old classic that is coming back. So it'll be a good chance to find out whether they want to know about the new stuff or the old stuff.
Bauble Beast, Brainchild, or something classic.
All right, so while we're waiting for chat to vote, Luis Loza is in chat, and he confirms that androids are in the Lost Omens Ancestry Guide. And Kitsune Warlock says there's an android NPC in the PFS scenario.
All right. Excellent.
Sort
Thanks,
of.
Luis.
It's more of a technological simulacrum, not quite an android, but...
Now I know the android he's talking about.
But close one.
There's also a few monsters in this book that are kind of the like, well, it looks cute, but types of monster. So there's one that looks kind of like a monkey with dragonfly wings.
Adorable.
Its name is the Skull Peeler.
Oh.
So,
No, thank you.
Oh, that is a name that gets a reaction.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other ones that is on the cover is the classic Tooth Fairy. That I know that Judy Bauer, when we were working on the first edition bestiary, I think that was 4 that had the Tooth Fairy in it. I can't keep 4 and 5 straight. She had to like put a Post-it over it just so she didn't have to look at it while she was working on it. It's like, which I understand that.
There's a PFS scenario where a Tooth Fairy was trying to steal my teeth, and then there is also an adventure path that I played in, and it's just like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I get it. It's terrible, and I can move on now.
Yes, it's terrible and brilliant.
Yeah. We have the skeleton troop on the cover of the Bestiary 3. So of course, like, that's Christmas for a Tooth Fairy. Just like, look at them.
Oh my god.
You gotta get all those.
All the
So it's
teeth.
about quantity, not quality of the teeth.
Easy access. Don't even have to, pry a lip up. Just dunk.
Pop it right out.
All right, so it looks like Brainchild has won by a small margin.
Okay, Brainchild. Congratulations on your small margin, Brainchild. So the Brainchild is basically the urban legend monster.
Okay.
So its reputation is what gives it power. So it has a bunch of abilities that if somebody it's fighting believes it has that ability, it has that ability.
Oh.
That's cool. But how do you make rules about that?
It was very hard.
Yeah.
I had the idea for it, and then I had to write it, and I'm like, oh no.
What is that, like 14 pages of rules?
It fit in one. mostly it's just kind of like, here's a list. We're not gonna, we're not gonna do everything that could possibly happen, but there's like, it has more spells if people think it has more spells.
Right.
And there's a sidebar about kind of spreading rumors in advance if you're going to use it in your game. Because, if you're going to have this, you want people saying different things about it.
Right.
So that, the rogue thinks that it's immune to enchantment, and the fighter thinks that it, can scare people away, but they don't agree, right? Because it can affect different people differently. Because of
interesting. Okay.
So that was a pretty fun one to write, and has like you can use it in a lot of different ways in adventures. So I like that you can kind of adapt it a whole bunch.
I can already see GMing an encounter with it and being like, if somebody's doing something that would provoke an attack of opportunity, I imply, oh, he's got his weapon ready to strike. And then as soon as this player's like, I bet he's got attack of opportunity. Like, now he does.
Now he does. Thanks so much. Yeah, that seems like go ahead.
It's also got a backstory thing where these can kind of arise out of rumors, but also they can be what is left after somebody gets killed with Phantasmal Killer. Because Phantasmal Killer is seeing, the most terrifying thing to you possible. And if that kills you, the illusion hangs around, it becomes this.
I love the concept of like magical pollution, and that there's a reason you shouldn't just be using magic willy-nilly. Like that's one of my favorite themes for campaigns.
Yeah.
So the idea that there's Phantasmal Killer smog is wonderful to me.
Well, what's funny is that's your favorite, except my favorite theme is that there's magic everywhere for just little mundane things. And then you turn it off and watch what happens. People are like, how do we tend the fields? Like you go out there and till the fields. Like, no, I don't know. We have magic that does this. I don't understand.
Yeah, that sounds sweaty.
I don't want to do that. Where's my invisible servant to bring me my lunch?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Godzilla Killer is saying that sounds like a really cool way to get players to recall knowledge. I know that there's been some push and pull about now that recall knowledge takes an action. People are like, I want to know more, but I don't want to be the one that uses my action to find out.
That's exactly why it takes an action. Because I think we're all there. We're there in the PF1 encounters where it's like, oh, it's starting. Everybody roll a bunch of knowledge checks, right? And now we kind of want it to be more, you're making decisions and you're weighing your options and having to decide what thing you're going to do. Or you take the feat that lets you do it for free, and now you're that guy, right? And the bard can say like, I know things. You're in luck.
It is also a good argument for making recall knowledge checks secret rolls. Like, it is a secret roll. I tend to just let the players roll it, but like knowing that I could just make stuff up and apply it to that monster, I totally want them to fail all of their recall knowledge checks.
Oh yeah, it's got a breath weapon. What kind of damage does it do? And they're talking back and forth. I bet it's fire. Okay, it's got a fiery breath weapon, I guess. Okay.
And Kitsune Warlock is saying dubious knowledge now becomes super dangerous.
Oh yeah. Ooh.
It was always super dangerous.
Well, now it can kill you.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
What else has got on your list?
I'm getting toward the end of it. I'll still take some questions and things, but I wanted to showcase the reason for the season, because it is we're in the middle of December here. So there's a creature that didn't get into the game until late in the bestiaries of first edition, but good old Krampus is here.
Oh, nice.
Our 21st level basket carrying hairy chain boy has made the cut for bestiary 3.
So how come he got to skip the queue like that?
Well, you're going to tell him no, Ryan?
There's a lot of other CR21 monsters that could be a level 21 monster that someone has to say no to.
We'll call it a bribe for Krampus. It's like, please don't take us. A lot of these creatures, we're pretty sure they spend all their time on Galarian. Krampus, I don't know. I think he's multiverse hopping a little bit, so it's best to kind of placate him.
We'll put you in a book. We'll give you good art.
You've got 2 bestiaries under your belt now for the new system. You've got 2 years of designing for it. The brainchild sounds like something completely different from anything we've ever seen in any tabletop role-playing game. Are there any other areas where you're like, this is something that we can do in 2nd edition that we couldn't do in any previous games, or this is just something that with the new momentum we've got going for this system, really, this is the best time for this in Bestiary 3?
There are a lot of things that, are... I don't know if you could really say we couldn't do it in Pathfinder 1st edition. It's just a matter of like, how hard are we going to have to, bend everything into place to make it work? And some of that is because, you kind of had to fake a lot of things to make the numbers work. And now it's a lot easier to kind of just say like, it works this way because that is how it's going to work. Like, I don't know how I would have done the spell DCs for a brainchild in 1st edition when it's like, I don't know what its stats are. It's made up. So some of those is like, you can, take this shortcut to get the numbers and the basics done. And that lets you add kind of more interesting abilities. I think that's kind of our main advantage when doing these. It's a little freer on the kind of math end. There are definitely some of these creatures that are making it in here. There's some expansions on things that would be hard to expand on before. Like I said, skeletons in 1st edition, you kind of have like, you make it skeleton, it does this, and now it's a skeleton. And that is, all skeletons from now on. And then 2nd edition has the more like, here are some basic skeletons, and you can add these abilities to them to have kind of a variety. You can have them throw their skulls at people and that kind of stuff. So stuff like doing the additional section on skeletons. Like I said, it has the skeleton troop, but there's also a harpy skeleton and a tyrannosaurus skeleton. So there are a lot of things that we can kind of just expand on more directly to
Very cool.
Get special kinds of encounters.
So you're pushing the envelope on the brainchild. You're pushing, well, you're bringing back an old favorite in the troop, but it is bringing something new to Pathfinder 2nd edition in terms of what monsters can be and what they can do. Are there any other new creature types or concepts that you want to talk about or tease? 'Cause I'm excited. You've got me really excited. Let me take a look here. Because it just, yeah. Both of those really take what encounters can look like and change them. Like, because now you're dealing with troops have their own set of rules and their own set of strategies for dealing with. So I'm really, what else you got?
Okay, I'll talk about one more creature.
Okay.
And then I think I probably need to close the spoiler gates.
Okay.
Let me bring it up here to make sure I don't misrepresent it. I promise I'm not texting Aaron to make sure I can talk about this.
Should you?
Shh, don't give him ideas.
I was actually just checking to make sure. It's like, I don't remember this being in 1st edition, but I'm going to check and make sure it wasn't in like some obscure source. It wasn't on Pathfinder Wiki, so if it is in some obscure source, chat will tell us.
I'm sure they will. They're very knowledgeable.
So the Glimmental is in here, which is a creature from the positive energy plane that kind of does the, it's often said like the positive energy plane, you can get healed so much you kind of pop, right? Being healed too much is not a good thing necessarily. And this is a creature that can do that. Like, it can make you exceed the normal limits of your bodily health until it is not good for you to be in that situation. So it's kind of a glowing creature of light. The art is kind of cool. It kind of looks like a glowing soap bubble in a humanoid form, right? It's really, kind of ethereal looking. That's maybe a bad choice of words given the ethereal plane, but
yeah, sort of insubstantial.
Common use of ethereal,
yeah.
And so it can kind of form a light bond with someone, put them in its light, and then it can heal them in excess of their actual hit points.
To their detriment.
Yeah, they start to get sickened, and then eventually, I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens, but you can imagine it's not good.
Channel positive energy and viscera.
That reminds me of that Doctor Who episode where, spoiler alert, this is an episode, where folks had too much life and they couldn't die no matter what. Some sort of plot involving this creature along those lines would just be creepy and fantastic. It's like, no, there's just too much life energy here. We need to introduce like some necromancy or something.
Can somebody curse this land, please?
Please. Ooh, fun.
I don't suppose I can get one of those guys as a familiar.
I see where you're going with this, and come on.
Fair.
That was GM voice if I ever heard it.
It can only heal you if you're at full hit points, and if it does, you die. How about compromise?
Well, I do like compromising. Considering Warlock is in chat, just quoted you. Come on.
Yeah, that is definitely a GM ruling right there. You can have it as long as it's a terrible choice. Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're coming up on our hour, Logan. This was fun. This was we went different places than I was expecting to, and I'm glad of that. Is there anything you want to shout out to before we let you go?
Just keep watching the blogs. We've got some announcements of stuff coming up early next year that are coming along soon. We've got the kind of announcement about the kind of team changes coming up. So keep an eye out for those. I don't want to jump the gun on any of it here, but I think there's some stuff to be excited about just around the corner.
And actually,
in addition to all the stuff you already better be excited about.
Best Year 3 is coming out in March, right? That's still the plan?
I think that's right.
That's what's still on the
website.
Always
like, I'm so far.
Right.
I'm looking so far in the future, I never remember release dates.
All right, excellent. Where can people find out more about you, Logan?
On my Twitter account, twitter.com/Logan Bonner, or at Logan Bonner if you're actually using Twitter, I guess. That's where I do most of my talking. Watch for new releases.
All right,
fantastic.
Excellent. We'll be right back with no real news, so I guess with a little bit of banter right after this.
Sounds great. Hello again.
When there's no news to talk about, we like to have a banter segment where we just catch up gamer to gamer, talk about what's going on in our lives. V, you've got something really big going on gamer related in your life coming up Monday?
So Monday on the 21st, we're having the very first ever episode of Super Smash Finder, which is an independent podcast, not directly associated with No Direction, only associated in so much as I am associated with both. But it is a project that myself and Jason from What Do You Do Pods put together based on a Twitter conversation. And then we decided, what the heck not? Let's do a tournament style show with different podcasters who fight for glory and honor using Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And it's finally happening. It's taken a bit longer than I wanted, but it's here soon.
It's one of those things where it felt like, okay, wow, this was announced a while ago, but it also feels like, oh my God, already?
Yeah, it's a little bit about, I think because it was announced a while ago and there's a lot of excitement, and then there is just so much planning and work that has to go into this. You have to think about, well, what are the rules for character creation? What about this niche rule? What about this niche rule? What about team composition? Can I just have 4 fire sorcerers with min-maxed abilities just fireballing, carpet bombing the field? Well, we can't allow that, so we gotta make sure team composition is interesting. And there's just a lot of different things that sort of go into balancing it, and that ends up taking a while. Folks also have to get their teams together and get all their characters approved. We have a rigorous audit process where we make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Everyone's picked the correct number of feats, not too many, not too few. We've seen both. And it's been a lot of kind of paperwork. But now that we're finally here, I think we're finally ready to do it. And I'm so excited for Monday. It's going to be really cool. For our first episode.
Well, so Monday, what is happening? Is that a Twitch stream? Is that the podcast releases?
So it's going to be the Twitch stream. We're still working on like podcast feeds because the different feeders can be kind of finicky, but it's definitely going to be on Twitch. Rather than getting all of those specific streaming services hooked up and tested and ready, we're like, you know what, let's just do it. Everyone's ready. Let's just do it. So it's going to be here on Twitch. And it's going to be the Find the Path Team Jagar or Jagare, depending on how you pronounce it, and MN Maxed or Min Maxed Bearded Dragons team. And I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to this. What time is it airing at?
Oh, that is a fantastic question that I should already know. I believe we had to make sure everyone. It's going to be at different times based on the availability of the specific podcasters, but this one is going to be at about 9 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're East Coast US, we're at 9 p.m. And it should be about an hour or two, I'm guessing. Probably about 2 hours. Probably around 90 minutes for the fight itself, plus a bit of time at the beginning and the end to introduce the teams, the shows that they're from, and also the wacky set of characters that they're bringing into the arena. So should be good fun.
So when I log in, what is it going to look like? What's going to be on my screen?
When you log in as a player or when you log in as an audience member? Well, we're going to start with probably a relatively standard podcast setup where we've got myself as one of the hosts and Jason just talking really quick, introducing, hey, here's who our teams are. We're going to bring the teams on one at a time and have a quick little interview with them, just chatting with them about what their show's about and what their team is like. And then we're going to get into it, and we'll have hopefully all 10 of us lined up there and the arena screen all ready to watch and go. And basically, I'm just acting as ref and GM, and the players are the players, and we'll see what happens.
Do you have a referee costume picked out?
I don't. I wonder how fast I could get like a good ref's shirt.
Either get hired at Foot Locker for the shirt or mug a Foot Locker employee. If we're talking about fast, or I guess an actual referee, that you don't just have to target people who wear novelty referee shirts for their job.
I'm not sure. Dustin is recommending an old white shirt and a spray paint can. I do have masking tape.
You don't want to wear spray paint. You will get so high off those fumes, and they linger.
Won't that just make a better show?
Depends on your definition of better. It'll make an entertaining show. But your suggestion of masking tape stripes is it is much better than his suggestion of a spray paint one.
And a little easier to pull off, I'd imagine. Well, I know I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fantastic. Folks get to show off not only their sort of performative chops as fellow entertainers, but also their Pathfinder 2nd Edition chops as they use whatever strategy they can to dominate in this arena. And it is one of my own design with multiple elevations and traps and things to play with. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
So it's already been announced that No Direction will be participating in this as a player, as you know, a team. I don't know if we've ever said the player list, so I'd like to take the time to give a shout out to my teammates, because I will be on the team. But Lauren Sieg of Dover Queen and Adventurous and Roll for Combat, she is more our team captain, maybe the team manager. I don't know. She's definitely somebody that's taken a leadership position. And boy, did she scare us when she first said, like, okay, we've got the team. This is what we need to do to destroy everyone.
She is so
okay, Lauren, that's what you want us to do. And then the APG came out and the number of options was just overwhelming. So it's like, new plan. Let's just have fun with it. Also on the team, we've got Dustin Knight, Kitsune Warlock, who's gotten a few shout outs in chat today. And Andrew, and I should say he's from the Fox's Cunning blog, and also has some freelance credits coming up from Paizo that you should be paying attention to. Indeed. And Andrew Sturdivant of the Something Creates blog on No Direction. So it's we wanted to make sure we had a whole spectrum of what the network represents as members of the team. And while I won't go into our specific characters, I will say that the team name is the No Direction, or the KD Chimeras.
I love it. I love the shout back to the Chimera Games and Cafe.
Oh, and Kitsune Warlock in chat is giving a hint about the character he'll be playing. I won't repeat it, so you have to be watching live, reading chat, and having some insight into the type of character that Dustin would make to understand what that hint means.
Ooh.
This has been a long but fun process. Like it's been drawn out, but it's like it's character creation, it's team building, it's discussing different directions, art orders. Like it's been fun, and we haven't even started yet.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to kind of take it slow with the first season and make sure that we're addressing like all the different rules and things we can, because there will probably be some tweaks and changes to the rules and to the way things work when we do a second season, and I am anticipating one because I think this is going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun for everyone. But it's going to make things go smoother in the future. So I don't mind that it's taken a little bit longer. I just want to make sure that it's, that it's successful and that it's good. And part of that is making sure that the rules are scaffolded in such a way that you have interesting and fun combats with a lot of opportunities for both teams to, come back from a loss or to take an advantage by creative use of the battlefield and whatnot.
I forget if we've talked about, it's going to be round robin, correct?
Well, the exhibition matches are going to be sort of just, I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to play at least once. And I'm going to try and match up teams that have approximately equal skill levels and experience with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So I know we've even got some Starfinder podcasts that are participating that are saying, well, we're just learning 2nd Edition just for this show. And that's kind of fun. But I want to put them against each other. That way they're not getting trounced by someone who's like, we have complete rules mastery. It's like, all right, go home.
You hear that, Lauren? Go home.
And the hope is to essentially seed what will be a bracketed tournament as well with them, so that I can look at who performed well, what the point spreads were, things like that, and come up with a way to establish a good and exciting bracket.
Well, it's already exciting just from what we've got going on now. Oh, what is Zathos of Frisia says Maul had a pretty wild finish. MAUL. Oh, that was the Starfinder Pro Wrestling League, or was it Starfinder or Pathfinder?
No, this is Pathfinder. Jason Bowman has a show, I believe that's what they're talking about, where groups of monsters fight each other. So just bestiary monsters to see who does better. And they all have the same CR budget. So
yeah, I meant to follow that because he went all out with the graphic design and the team logos. I don't know what it seems like it's on YouTube. I'm in Jason Bowman's Discord channel now, and he's been advertising it in the Monster Arena Ultimate League channel in there. So yeah, it looks like it's all up on YouTube. I'm gonna have to go back and check it out.
Yeah, I saw a few episodes of that because we were, in the midst of putting together Super Smash Finder, and then we're like, what, Jason Bowman's doing an arena style show? How dare he? And it's like, oh, it's actually a totally different sort of thing, so that's fine.
All right, well, V, it's like 10 after 10. We've still got plenty of time. Is there anything you want to chat about?
I chatted about that. That's what I was most excited to talk about. How is your gaming in these trying times?
Minimal. It's adventurous, basically, and societous. So for those people who don't know, adventurous is our actual play on the No Direction Network of the War for the Crown Adventure Path, run by Crystal Fraser, who developed the Adventure Path. But that is a first edition Adventure Path. So much of my gaming has been first edition, which I'm fine with. I still love first edition. But Societus, the play-by-post that Randall Meyer is running on the No Direction Discord channel, is basically all of the second edition gaming that I'm getting in right now.
Right.
And it's good, and it's a nice slow pace so that I don't have to feel bad that I have to look up the same rules for my character every single time it's my turn in initiative.
Oh, no.
Because I have not got full wind in my 2E sails of just how to play the game properly. Like, I get the game, but as soon as I get to the table, it's kind of like, doesn't matter how much I studied last night. Once it's test time, I am failing for sure.
Well,
so I have some plans, or maybe my plan is to have a resolution in the new year to get more 2E in, especially as a GM. Not prepared to go into those plans because anytime I have plans, it could become content.
But,
yeah. The main thing is that not being sure what 2021 gaming will look like.
Mhm.
Actually, there was a comment by Chris Kimball in our chat was suggesting that we cover a topic of hybrid gaming, because 2020 forced a lot of people to get to know how to be a virtual tabletop player.
Mhm.
People got very good at virtual tabletops. Groups got formed, and now with 2021, it looks like we're on the cusp of getting be able to play face to face again. But we've got these gaming groups based on people that we play virtually with, some of which might be in your area, some of which might be from across the country.
Right.
So 2021 is probably going to be the year of hybrid gaming. And he wants us to cover that as a topic, which I don't want to talk about right now, because that sounds like if we really researched it, we could have an amazing conversation about that. But what do you just think about the concept that that's what we can expect from 2021 gaming?
Yeah, I think a lot of folks have learned how to make technology work for them so that they can get their game on, you know? If you've only got yourself and maybe one or two other people in your house at most that you can play with, you want a full party, you know, you want to play with other folks. And so I know that the advances in what people can do and are doing with virtual tabletops have grown significantly. I know my own skill set has grown significantly as I see other people do things, whether it's on an actual play or they're just, you know, talking about their game or during a con game. And there's a lot of, hey, how'd you do that? Oh, okay, I'm gonna incorporate that into my games. And then I play with other people, and they're like, oh, that was I didn't know Roll20 could do this. How'd you do that? And I'm like, I'll show you. And we have collectively learned so many new ways to stay in touch with each other, to keep gaming, even though we are unable to see each other in person. And I honestly think that's going to continue. I know a lot of folks that really just want to get in person again. I'm one of them. I'd love to find a local group. I moved right before pandemic happened, so I don't really have a local group. Online is the only way I can and have gamed, but even then, I still really look forward to being in front of people, but I think I'm still going to maintain all of those ties I have with online games.
On the subject of how much people have learned with what you can do with virtual tabletops, Roll20, one of my concerns as I was really happy that throughout this year, people really understood how to play games on virtual tabletops, and they learned, and people got the basic skills, and it just became a whole thing. It was like a virtual tabletop renaissance. My concern is that the next step is then people will expect system mastery of Roll20 and of the virtual tabletop from all the players. And it's like, I really like just rolling physical dice. I like having a paper character sheet. I know these tools have all these integrated features, and those are great, but I don't have fun with those integrated features. I acknowledge that they can really help some people, but I also still want to play it my way, which is kind of a hybrid of physical materials on a virtual tabletop. So I just hope, maybe I'm evolving into a grognard when I say this, but like, I hope I still get to play my way, even as I'm playing on a virtual tabletop and using the tools that I've acquired over the last year.
And that's what I've told people too, when they see, I sometimes like to use elaborate setups with, you know, macros and everything's automated, because I feel like it makes the game run faster, at least for me in the position of a GM. But if the technology is going to get in your way, get rid of it, make it work for you. There was someone who was complaining about, well, I don't know how to lock down tokens so that players can't just move every token on the screen. I said, let them move every token on the screen. There's still a bit of table etiquette where you move your character and you don't move someone else's without their permission. But, you know, that social etiquette's still there. You don't have to have the computer mandate that for you.
Yeah, I can't lock down tokens on a physical tabletop.
Right.
I guess I could with an electric magnet, but I wouldn't.
A very powerful
a waste of
electric
time.
Magnet.
I suppose if I had a cat, that wouldn't be a waste of time, but otherwise.
Perhaps. But otherwise, yeah, just use the virtual tabletop in a minimalistic way, just so that you have some sort of representation, some visual representation of your tokens, of your map, and don't worry that it's not perfect, honestly. Our imaginations are far more powerful than what you could probably do on a virtual tabletop anyway, so just stick with that.
Considering Warlock. So once again, Dustin has an interesting point about Alexander Azagunis has articles about Teenage Wasteland, which is a hybrid play-by-post and Roll20. So when we do cover the hybrid table, we got to remember it's not just a hybrid of someone with a camera and some people at a physical table. It can also be a play-by-post can use all of these tools for that kind of game too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen a lot of different interesting combinations in the, online convention circuit this year as people try and figure out what tools they can use, whether that's like Google Slides to represent maps and in miniatures and just using those sort of permissions so that everyone can see it, but you can only touch certain things. And I just think it's really interesting what people have been able to do.
When we ran the play test, not the play test, but we ran the game to try 2E just before we reviewed the core rulebook, the one with the Yak Farm.
Yes, the Yak
that
Farm.
didn't use a virtual tabletop. I had a map physically next to me, and I was the only one as the GM that had access to what this map was. So it was theater of the mind for everyone else, as long as I was describing in detail what was going on there, which is not an ideal situation for me. If I want to have hybrid, I want to have a physical table, but I want a camera on the physical table.
Sure.
And I think I'd prefer gamer's eye view rather than a bird's eye view of where that camera would be. I want it to be at eye level of somebody sitting at the table, just kind of tilted down towards it, which is not the virtual tabletop experience, but is basically the physical tabletop experience.
That's true.
Anyway, we're getting dangerously close to actually getting into this topic that I want to save.
Okay. We'll save the topic. Save the rest of it.
So another topic Param and I discussed whether we should even have this year would be some kind of a year in review, given the year that we would be reviewing. But since we did talk about how 2020 was a year there were a lot of people learned to use virtual tabletops, and that became a more viable and more integrated part of the hobby, I am curious if there are any other gaming highlights for you about the past year, such as it was.